China wraps up military patrols around Taiwan, with some experts saying they will continue. Is Taiwan really a living hell for pedestrians? Thousands of people say yes. Taiwan's Green Island hopes its popularity as a vacation spot will bring in more specialist doctors. Plus, it's Ghost Month, and some Taiwanese are remembering the French soldiers buried here. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. Security analysts say that China could increase its military presence and exercises around Taiwan in the lead-up to Taipei's presidential elections. Beijing wrapped up drills on Saturday in response to transit stops by Taiwan's vice president in the U.S. Jaime Ocon reports.
Taiwanese fighter jets taking off to intercept Chinese warplanes flying near the country. For the past few days, Taiwan has been dealing with a surge in nearby Chinese military activity. China, which sees Taiwan as part of its territory, announced on Saturday that it would conduct military exercises as well as joint air and sea patrols involving the Navy and Air Force. China's military condemned China's drills as provocative behavior.
近年来，中共持续派遣机舰袭扰，已经对区域安全造成实质的侵害。这次借故发动军事演习，不仅无助于台海和平稳定，也凸显了穷兵黩武的心态。 坐实了军事扩张的霸道本质。
These drills are being seen as a response to transit stops by Taiwan's Vice President Lai Ching-te in the U.S. last week. Just hours after Lai landed back in Taiwan, Chinese naval ships began their joint patrols. Footage from Taiwan's Naval Command captured this moment of a standoff between the two militaries. And up in the skies, a total of 45 Chinese warplanes flew in the region as part of the drills. Of that group, 27 military aircraft crossed into Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This space is used by the military as a defensive buffer, but it is not sovereign airspace. China often increases its military activity around Taiwan whenever other countries take actions that seem to promote Taiwanese sovereignty.
Beijing made quite a stink about, Vice President Lai's trip. And I think they had to do something to kind of save face and show that, to the domestic population inside China and to the rest of the world that, they stand by their words when they say they will counter secessionist movements and activities like that.
Taiwan's presidential elections are less than 5 months away, and Lai, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party candidate, is currently in the lead. The DPP traditionally emphasizes Taiwanese identity over Chinese, and insists Taiwan is not a part of China. Taipei and Beijing haven't held official talks since DPP President Tsai Ing-wen was elected in 2016. And analysts say exercises like these are likely to continue as long as Lai seems set to be Taiwan's next president.
Fortunately, we're going to see Beijing resort to showing its capabilities with the PLA by doing exercises, by doing the continued incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone to really, in an effort to really try to scare the Taiwanese people into voting for the KMT. In other words, voting against the DPP.
As China continues to step up its military presence, Taiwan's military says it will seek neither escalation nor conflict. And with more aggressive actions from China expected, Taiwan says it will defend its sovereignty and will not be coerced. Howard Zhang and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has overseen the launch of missiles over the Sea of Japan, also known as the East Sea. Those launches took place on Monday as Kim inspected a North Korean naval fleet stationed off the nation's east coast. They came right after the United States and South Korea began joint military exercises known as Ulchi Freedom Shield. Pyongyang has called the drills a rehearsal for invasion. Australia will buy more than 200 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the U.S. as it seeks to boost its long-range strike capability. This deal was finalized in Canberra on Monday and is worth over $830 million US. It's part of a $1 billion US plan to enhance Australia's long-range arsenal. Tomahawk cruise missiles have a strike range of over 1,500 kilometers, and they are the primary land attack missile for the U.S. Navy. This deal makes Australia only the third nation to have these weapons, after the US and the UK. Back in Taiwan, about 9 people died in traffic accidents every day so far this year. On Sunday, thousands of people braved the rain to protest conditions on the country's streets. Royal Hughes reports.
A sea of umbrellas, taking to the streets to demand pedestrian rights, with a demand to give the country's roads back to its citizens. Ever since Western media called Taiwan a living hell for pedestrians, the country's civil society has been pushing for a goal called Vision Zero, aimed at safer streets and zero pedestrian deaths.
我觉得这是人民的基本的生存权，对，这是一个每个人都应该要有的平安。
当然啊，你小孩子到外面去，长辈到外面去，我们要注意到他的安全，怕有出事情。
然后就是每一次我刚来台湾的时候，就是每一次我都在那个要过那个交通灯的时候，我都停住一些，因为他们就是到了最近的时候才刹车，然后我就觉得很紧张。
These were just some of the 1,000 people who marched through Taipei, demanding action against the high number of traffic deaths in the country every year. The protesters are demanding improvements in safety for people on the street and want the government to make changes, like improving infrastructure and road safety.
因为行人是最弱势的，我们应该要以强势的，就是有钣金保护的驾驶，要来保护行人，而不是行人自我保护。
Presidential candidates Ho Yo-wee, Ko Wen-je, and Vice President Lai Ching-te made appearances at the event, along with potential independent candidate Terry Go. Taiwan's Minister of Transport also spoke and acknowledged the need to make changes.
在过去，在整个交通安全或是行人路权所跨的部会，或是中央跟地方，这个权责比较不清楚，所以我们这一次在道路交通安全基本法里面就把它写清楚。
The government also recently announced a plan to cut traffic deaths by 30% by 2030. The plan involves new policies and reports every 6 months. It also commits resources to the country's most dangerous intersections.
The goal for today was to advocate for return of the streets and the city to the people. And by marching throughout the city, they did just that. Justin Wu and Harrell Hughes in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A sinkhole opened in Taipei on Sunday, the 5th in the city in the last 3 months. This hole appeared next to a construction site near Xingmen, a popular nightlife and shopping district. The hole measured 2 by 3 meters and was 1.5 meters deep. Taipei has seen several sinkholes in recent months, with some of them closing off roads for days at a time. Experts say Taiwan's roads are built to a high standard, but heavy rainfall can still create cavities below the surface. Police in eastern Hualien have arrested more than 30 members of a suspected fraud ring. Authorities say the suspects pretended to be Chinese public security officers and used facial transformation software to deceive Chinese citizens. Police also seized dozens of phones, over $5,000 in cash, and illegal drugs. Taiwan's drying out after a very wet weekend. Sunday saw flooding in several places as storms dumped rain on much of the country. These and other recent storms have helped with refilling Taiwan's depleted reservoirs, but water officials say the south in particular still needs more rain to meet farmers' needs for upcoming planting seasons. Residents of Green Island off Taiwan's southeast coast want better access to vision care. The island currently has no resident eye doctors, but some hope that its popularity as a vacation spot will help bring some in, at least on a rotating basis. John Van Trieste reports.
For the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic, Green Island is getting visiting doctors to check up on the children there. Their hope is to diagnose illnesses and disorders early. Among those on this trip are eye doctors, something this small island of a few thousand doesn't have. Despite its popularity as a diving and seaside destination, the island's medical resources are limited. Actual treatment for vision problems, among other medical issues, requires a more than 30-kilometer boat trip to Taiwan's mainland. That may be discouraging some residents from bringing their children for a checkup with these visiting doctors. Even after a diagnosis, they will still need to make the journey across the water.
在绿岛的早疗儿童应该有20位，那可是今天来报名的只有6名，所以我们要再协许另外14位的客儿。
Islanders want better access to care without having to travel, and that's given local officials an idea.
医师能够来绿岛休假，然后边看诊的话，这样子的话，我们绿岛
Islanders hope their home's aquatic attractions will mean it'll no longer have to rely on organized groups like this one to get residents the care they need. Ethan Pan and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
It's Ghost Month in Taiwan, a time when people pay tribute to the dead. And in the northern port city of Keelung, it's also a chance to reflect on a little bit of history that not many people still remember. Yu Jinghuang has the story.
All dressed up and ready to remember the dead. It's Ghost Month here in Taiwan, and there are some unusual spirits walking around this community center. Attendees are dressed as people from the Sino-French War, a conflict that happened more than a century ago. All the main characters are here, such as then-governor of Taiwan, Liu Mingchuan, French Admiral Ahmed de Cockbet and his soldiers, and Empress Dowager Cixi, who ruled China in the late 19th century. It's not the first time people here have remembered the war, but this year they've really gone all out to get into character.
这次是由我的意识而造的，所以说我就很喜欢。对，我觉得我喜欢，大家一定会喜欢。
今年好像比较帅。
Participants are marching to the nearby Sino-French War Memorial Park to hold a pudu ritual. It's a traditional Ghost Month rite held for the spirits of those who died without family nearby. But to understand why there's a historical side for the war in Taiwan, we need to go back around 150 years in the past. At that time, France was waging a bloody campaign to colonize Vietnam, which was then a protectorate of China's Qing Dynasty. War broke out in Vietnam and several cities in China. But part of that war also took place right here in Keelung. It was here that 700 French soldiers fought and died in battle with Qing forces. Their gravesite has stood here since then. It wasn't until 2003 that local residents began holding the pudu service for their spirits. These are some common offerings that you'll see during Ghost Month in Taiwan. But for the French soldiers, locals prepared something more fit to their appetite: baguettes and wine. The addition of these French fare was the idea of a former village chief. This tradition has also become an event in the diplomatic calendar. The head of the de facto French embassy in Taiwan is here. Florent Pacquiao only started as the country's representative earlier this month. It's his first trip outside of Taipei since he arrived.
It's also a way for me to pay tribute to the work which has been done by the local authorities to take care of this memory. And this is a common memory today between France and Taiwan.
War here has long since become a distant memory. What remains is a shared sense of history, a desire for peace, and a respect for those who died far away from home. Kamashi and Yu Jinghuang for TaiwanPlus.
While most people are getting into the spirit of Ghost Month by offering tribute to the dead, one city in southern Taiwan is marking the occasion with a spooky new walking tour. Jeremy Olivier has more.
This temple in Tainan is dedicated to the ancient Chinese philosopher Confucius. But it also has a hall with memorial tablets for a dozen or so spirits, including one named Chen Shouliang. Chen's tale is one of Tainan's most well-known ghost stories. She was a widow who was brutally killed after refusing to sleep with a local official.
有一位师爷垂涎她的一个女色，陈守良的婆婆跟小姑来牵线以至于有后面的这样的一个被凌虐致死的这样一个悲惨的一个过程。
After her murder, Chen's ghost began haunting the people who had wronged her, all of whom suffered terrible deaths. She came to be known as Tainan's most powerful female phantom. As Taiwan marks Ghost Month, Tainan is looking to draw in tourism for the occasion, with a walking tour of sites related to Chen Shouliang. The route includes several historical temples around the city.
这些庙宇事实上对于陈守良过去的一些传说都有扮演的举足轻重的地位。
Whether you're interested in local history or just a good spooky story, this ghostly tour may be just the thing to raise your spirits during Ghost Month. Joseph Wu and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break.
I'm at Taipei's Liberty Square, where a big outdoor jazz concert is kicking off after a 4-year hiatus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. Be sure to follow us on social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world.
Truly loving someone means letting them go according to their own will.
我妈妈在64岁的时候被诊断小脑萎缩症，她希望在她末期的时候，我可以帮助她解脱。
How to cope with the suffering of ill loved ones.
我大概是第一次身为医生，然后要做帮忙断食往生这样的事情。我们没有悲戚，我们终将会在远方再相见。对。
原来台湾在日本时代呢，都有用这种在地农产做的酒的习惯。政权转移的关系呢，就是它突然的消失不见。
How to reconnect with your roots when history has kept you apart.
我们的使命呢，就是说我一定要再把这些不见的这种酒的文化回到我们的农业舞台。
Immerse yourself in the heart of touching human tales alongside veteran journalist Chief A. Fan.
Hearing Chen Qianhao talking about making his Taiwanese wine is like hearing our own history.
Our stories, every Friday, 5:30 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. We've all heard of Silicon Valley, but Taiwan is also making a name for itself as a hub for high-tech innovation. But which of Taiwan's startups are on their way to becoming the next big thing? Joy Tseng went to a special awards ceremony to find out.
You've probably heard of Taiwan as a leader in the tech industry, given it's the home of chip-making giants TSMC. But Taiwan's tech might is much more than that. It's also a breeding ground for innovation, and the country's hottest startups are here at the next big awards, hosted by Startup Island Taiwan, an ecosystem backed by the government to support tech entrepreneurs. Several countries' trade representatives are here, as well as Taiwan's president, Tsai Ing-wen.
台湾有我们新的一代的创业家，我觉得蛮高兴的，也觉得做了8年总统也蛮值得的。
Startups are essentially young companies that are trying to bring usually a unique creative product or service to markets, but may need help growing. Taiwan's no stranger to this business model, with about 7,000 local startups and 90 accelerators or support programs registered here. A lot of them have leveraged or even created new tech tools to turn their ideas into a product. For example, here we're seeing everything from e-commerce to digital healthcare and online knowledge sharing platforms.
My co-founder, he's my college friend. He's an engineer, and I'm a non-engineer. So we collaborate together to create a technology education company called Hahao. I think we have a lot of supports from Taiwan government and the ecosystem. And also, I think Taiwan has a lot of good talents.
Actually, we started up in Taiwan in 2015, and then we expanded to Hong Kong. Last year, November, we went to Bangkok, Thailand. We launched there. And in 2019, we launched in Malaysia and Japan. And the next year, we will go to Singapore.
It's clear these innovators are just getting started. With their sights set on even bigger ideas, people around the world, especially investors, are likely to look to Taiwan to find the next big thing. John Su and Joyce Zhen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Russia's first moon mission in almost 50 years has failed. The unmanned Luna 25 vehicle launched on August 11th. It was set to be the first spacecraft to land on the moon's south pole on Monday. But Russia's space agency said it spun out of control on Saturday as it prepared to land, crashing into the moon. India is also trying to be the first to reach the moon's south pole, an area with possible frozen water and precious elements. Its craft is due to land there later this week. An anti-corruption campaigner has won Guatemala's presidential election by a landslide. Supporters of Bernardo Arévalo took to the streets to celebrate the ex-diplomat's victory. He won 58% of the vote in Sunday's election, according to preliminary results. Former First Lady Sandra Torres, who was seen as an establishment figure, took 37%. Guatemala is one of only 2 countries in Central America that have official diplomatic ties with Taiwan. Both presidential candidates had said they would maintain relations with Taiwan, but Arevalo also said that he would attempt to pursue closer ties with China. After a 4-year break because of the pandemic, one of Taipei's biggest jazz parties returned over the weekend. Yvonne Young was there to check out what's new in the scene.
Jazz. Since it first emerged in the early 1900s in the deep south of the United States, it's gone on to inspire generations of musicians all over the world. After it took off in the U.S., the musical style was soon introduced to Taiwan, while the country was under Japanese colonial rule. Later on, the local jazz scene was heavily influenced by America when Taiwan was under martial law, but it wasn't until the end of the martial law era that jazz truly began to flourish here. Since 2003, Taiwan's National Theater and Concert Hall has been hosting the annual Summer Jazz Festival. It's said to be the country's largest jazz music event. And after a 4-year hiatus, this open-air concert is back on. Though it was raining when the show kicked off, this didn't dampen the enthusiasm of the fans. Many people sat on the ground wearing raincoats and enjoyed music from Shanna Young and Music Oversized, who performed some Taiwanese folk songs adapted into jazz. As the night drew on and the weather improved, the crowds began to swell. Another act performing was Yunxu Electric 5, who showcased the diversity and possibilities of jazz music by giving it an electronic twist. Jazz pianist Yun Xu shared her insights into the country's growing jazz community.
I went to check out the jazz music like when I was in university. So always like the Blue Note in Student Road is like always packed. Like it's so difficult to get in. But maybe at the time there was little less jazz venues, probably. But now, of course, there's way more jazz clubs and more people playing. And I would say the audience is still growing.
She says that the influence of jazz has been staggering and in recent years can even be heard in Mandopop music.
More and more people studied abroad and then coming back. So when they encounter those pop singers or like there's, you know, they can influence them. Like the influence is mutual. So of course we can provide some more jazz elements in the pop music. I think nowadays maybe a little more than before.
Jazz is all about improvisation and freedom, 2 things that complement the culture of Taiwan well. So it's fitting this blend of musical fusion found a home here and has gone on to create its own unique style. Devon Tai and Yvonne Young for TaiwanPlus.
Sundance Film Festival Asia has wrapped up in Taipei. The winner of this year's short film competition was Tuo Tuo from Taiwan. It follows a young man who harvests deer antlers for medicinal wine. The film will now compete in next year's Sundance in the U.S. To learn more about the status of Taiwanese cinema in the world, our reporter Yu-Tsen Lai spoke with Sundance Programming Director Kim Yutani.
And this is Sundance's first year in Taiwan as well. So why Taiwan this year?
I came here in 2019 and was able to meet some of the artists here and some filmmakers and see some films, and just kind of knowing the rich film history that's here, I thought this was a great opportunity for Sundance to expand into Taiwan. The film Viva l'Amour is one of my all-time favorite films, and so I've always been curious about what's being made in Taiwan.
What's being screened in this year's event?
I think one of the most exciting parts about this year's festival was our short film competition. We have 9 finalists whose films that we're showing as a program. Some of them had just incredible animation and was telling like a story in a way that you would never imagine a story being told. And one of the films I found was formally really challenging. And I think that was exciting to see so many different types of voices represented in that small selection.
What do you think about Taiwan's contemporary film industry in general?
What we have been showing at Sundance recently that has come out of Taiwan has been VR. And that has found a place in our New Frontier section, which is focusing on new and innovative storytelling. That's something that I think we really are hoping for. By being here, that more filmmakers will see Sundance as a place for them, and that we'll be getting more submissions from Taiwan.
What's next for Sundance Film Festival Asia?
We fully intend to come back to Taipei to host another festival here, to make it bigger, have more guests, be able to have more panels, and expand what we're doing and to show more films. I think that's the goal.
That was Sundance Program Director Kim Yutani speaking to Yuten Lai. Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. Remember to download the Taiwan Plus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out these fireworks from the Taipei Summer Festival celebrating the upcoming lunar calendar Valentine's Day. I'm Eric Gao. Take care and see you next time.